All right, welcome everyone to chapter 6, the Magnetic Chorale. Selina is leading today, and she has beautifully focused her discussion on the concept of magnetism itself. Beautiful set of questions, so take it away.
Okie dokie. Okay, like I've written here, I decided that I was kind of always just sort of flipped off the word magnetism, just like energy or whatever, but he uses it very specifically, this pull, and everything's magnetically charged within this area, and he can feel it, this irresistible pull that's different. And I'm sure he's been feeling all kinds of attractions and energy, but this one's different, and he can feel it that everyone else there is feeling the same thing. So we went forward in obedience to the one impulse, attracting us both by its strange magnetic power. The flower-carpeted floor of that spacious arena contained a number of lounges composed of various aromatic mosses, soft as air, each one designed to produce its own peculiar effect magnetically. Magnetism is the strength and nourishment of the spiritual body. Sung aid to those special attendants in producing a suitable magnetic condition into which to introduce the patients. I saw that all the magnetisms had not ascended. Some had been distilled, shall I say, etherealized. So, and there's more than that. Like there's quite a few references to the magnetic force. And so like it brought to mind when I was working, like playing with neodymium magnets, how strong that force is. So I was imagining that force between the magnets, that what is that energy that's
right.
occurring, and how are they creating that? Like they're using other elements to create that same power.
Right.
Like they're using prayer, sound, and light to create that energy that has such a strong, and because our soul, isn't that what he says here? Like our soul is spiritual, so it must be some kind of magnetism that actually attracts our magnetism in our soul, even, like, I don't know.
That's beautiful.
A possibility, like the pull, where's, because magnetism is bipolar, right?
Yes.
Opposing forces. So it's just, I just find it kind of fascinating from the perspective of magnetism. And so does anybody else have thoughts on that? And also the question, do you feel it has healing power on Earth? I know people do use magnets to heal. And have you had experience of that? Do you think that works? Where do you think?
I feel like I'm open to the idea that this magnetism is different than the magnets. And the physical magnets.
That's right. But he says magnets. So I'm kind of going with that. It's different because obviously you're not using metal. But it must be that type of energy,
right?
Power, that kind of energy. That's, unless he's just using magnetism to describe those two opposites attracting.
It can also be that a loop is connected. There's a loop closed.
Yeah.
When there's an attraction, there's a call, and
yes. Yeah, and then that's completed when the opposite is attracted.
I wonder, I'm just, some ideas beginning to come up.
Yeah. So, yeah. But we do know that they are using a bunch of elements to create an energy.
Very curious.
It's like they're creating magnetism. Is it the same kind of energy as two magnets? I don't know.
Very curious.
I'm just, I just wanted to remember what was the question.
Is there a question? Well, any comments on that? Or
magnetism.
Any comments or opinions? And also if you feel that you kind of harness this kind of energy on Earth as well, a magnetic energy.
Well, yeah, yes, I feel so 100%. Well, from what I know from the way I work energetically, is I'm working with that electromagnetic energy all the time. I'm using my electromagnetic field to work with those in spirit who work with me to work through somebody else's electromagnetic field. So yes, it's opposing me, and it's electro and magnetic. What I know in our field, and bearing in mind every living thing has an electromagnetic field, of course, including the planet. And therefore, this is, of course, in our spiritual body anatomy rather than our physical anatomy or our soul. but therefore we can all connect to all of that, like a lattice, like a universal lattice that we can connect to. And the problem is that we have blocks, as we know, in our soul and therefore in our spiritual bodies, that flow is not necessarily occurring in the way it ought to have been made, or the way it's been made to flow. And for example, so we know on the planet that the poles, it flows from the North Pole to the equator, and then it flows to the south. It flows like that. In our body, I mean, this is as far as I know, I'm not saying this is true. As far as I know, it flows. So it's like, imagine a figure of 8 above us that's connecting to the field, it flows down into us. Then it flows all the way down through us like a core, like a trunk of a tree, and flows through an infinity loop or figure of 8 down into the earth. But then it also flows around us, like it's about 12 feet, not 12 feet, 2 feet away from our physical body. But it's also got all these infinity loops that flow from those fibers through to each of our chakras, meaning each chakra, meaning every joint really, not just the ones that we perhaps know about. So, but in this whole field, we have a load of blocks. So it would be like, for example, imagine these strands around us, which are just like electrical wires, let's say. Imagine if you and I hold a wire together and we send energy along it, rather like holding a rope between ourselves and going, zoom. If we hold it loosely, the energy goes blah, 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 blah. If we hold it tight, it goes, shoo. It goes very quickly. So it's rather like a part of that is strengthening those fibers so that it can flow more easily and more quickly. And imagine on those fibers, I mean, this is all conceptual, of course, that there are discs like CDs. And those discs all hold information about us. And those discs, as we know, we can put a CD in and it can become stuck or it can go on repeat. So a part of clearing that field is getting them so they revolve correctly and play correctly.
So do you think that people at the Magnetic Chorale are using that energy? That's the energy they're generating from their soul?
No. Well, I think that they're linked into it for sure. I think they're linked into that whole system. Yeah. But yeah, I feel like they're using that to a certain extent. But your question was about, can we use it on Earth?
Yes, on Earth.
And
yeah.
that's why I was just saying about that, because I feel 100%. In fact, when I first learned about this in my shopping for what I wanted to do, I was like, oh, that's what I want. That's what I need to do, electromagnetic field. And again, when I first read this chapter years ago, I was just excited reading this because it just made sense to me, how this would happen. But no, of course, they're far beyond what we can do ourselves, perhaps. But we can be vehicles for that.
But they've still been created with the same fundamental soul that we have. So,
well, let's keep exploring what the concept of magnetic calls to us, because all of our souls are different, open in different ways. So let's see what we can continue receiving from our guides.
And those magnets, for sure, I used those magnets in my rehabilitation. From a friend gave hers to me, and definitely they helped. I could feel the difference. Even when I first had a stroke and went into the MRI, magnetic resonance, that's when I knew. Before that, I thought, I just want to die. In that machine, that's when my faith came. I knew that, because it was a magnetic machine. I was like, oh, I can heal. Something woke up in me that knew I could heal from that moment.
Okay, thank you. Let's keep going.
Yeah. Kayla.
Thanks, Alicia. That was really interesting. I enjoyed that picture that you created. I found when I first read this, like the first kind of magnet section where they're talking about all the people just naturally being drawn towards this location. It reminded me of when, is it Dandy? When, I can't remember the names, but when he prayed for his friend to be supported, and then we read the whole experience of how that actually takes action, this prayer gets answered. And I was just thinking that that was kind of what was drawing all the people, is the call had been put out to come and to help, and so they were being drawn. And I was just seeing the differences in the spirit world, where you've got like the access to billions of people that are not in hell. So it draws so many more people than when on the earth, you know, one person came, and they kind of gave the illusion that maybe a few people had been called, but nothing like this. Thousands of people coming.
Thousands of men, I think, even just men, and then all
Yeah, right.
thousands. Yeah.
So that's just gave me pause to think about the difference between Earth versus the spirit world, where you have access to, you know, the infinite potential of people coming to your aid, which was pretty exciting. Yeah, but then it also got me to thinking about like that there must be some kind of resonance with all those people for the people that are being healed, and also for Siamedes and Krishna, like that there's all some kind of personality attributes that blend together to create the power of the magnetism. So that's just really.
I'm also thinking that maybe every single person that got drawn to attend there have something in their soul that contributes to the qualities required.
Yeah, and that's what I was just reading in the video with Mary and Jesus, was that specific like they were there specifically to help certain types of people. So at this magnetic chorale, so there's many with many people. So maybe Siamedes simply leads those ones with the people with that particular type of injury, and the people who are attracted are people who get it. That's their affinity, that they have a rapport with those types, that specific, because I guess it's kind of hard to know in the book, but Jesus says it's specific. They were there specifically for a certain type of injury. So when they're describing the injury in the book, they're describing a specific one. That doesn't mean that all the magnetic chorales would be that description.
Just for that.
Yeah. So that's a part that's a lot clearer. Yeah, other magnetic chorales would have
for other kinds of
different types of injuries. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. That's and I have the sense as well, like that when everyone's contributing their specific sound and note and color, that it's almost like, because when Aphraar speaks about the flowers and the banners and the fruits and that sort of thing, I had this sense of that everyone there is activate, like just their energy sitting right next to the wounded person is somehow resonating with something inside them that needs to come alive, and that's where the collective personalities is sort of wrapping themselves around the right individual to inspire them back to life.
Nice. Okay, thank you.
Wow. That was great. Judith?
Yeah, that was Selina, like what you said, and I watched the video, and they did do 3 videos, and I've got 20 minutes left on the second one. And yeah, it was interesting because like the people that came all had an interest in healing, I guess. So they were there to both witness and participate as an act of love. And what I liked about the chapter was like, it was men, but there were women, and then there were also young people, and then there were children. And I thought that was so interesting. And the idea of being magnetically drawn, not really knowing why, but just knowing you have to be there. You don't know what's going to happen, but you just go, you know. I thought that was so cool.
And just possibly even just a representation of those specific types of people, because I imagine each sphere may have millions of people in them. So it's not like everybody in that particular place, just those ones particularly attracted to that specific type of requirement and event.
And what someone pointed out in the recording was that, as it says in the book, it's like the last person comes in and all the seats are filled. It was like the chorale was made for the right amount of people.
Yeah.
So that was so cool.
I know. And
I guess
so specific, right? Like so like it was just not happenstance at all, any part of it. Yeah.
Right.
So Judith, what are your guesses around magnetic? What is that? What is that magneticness? What's
Well,
the
it was
element?
your desire within you. So it was like some sort of desire that you have for this. And I guess opening your soul to be sensitive to the calling. When you're not really injured and your soul is more open, you can feel the call of something like that.
But the magnetism that's actually coming out and doing the healing, what is that thing?
Well, that
What's
was
going on
God's
there?
from God. That was
Yeah.
God's love that
Okay.
healed. Yeah.
Okay,
But,
thank you.
yeah.
Alicia?
I was just remembering about when I think Michaela mentioned about the sounds and the colors. I noticed that when I work with people, I have different, because I often use sound as well, that different sounds come for different people. I mean, it's very specific for that person. And so that feels like a magnetism. It's almost like the laws of desire and the laws of rapport feel like they have some sort of magnetism that connects them too, that brings these appropriate people along. And I know for myself that in groups, we've done this experiment where somebody's been inside and they are going to call everybody who's outside, out in the way in a big garden. There's going to be a time when they're going to call them in, and most of the people have come in at the appropriate time, but it depends on that rapport that we have, or that magnetism that we have with the person. So I mean, that's just in a very simple experiment on Earth. So I can easily see that can be possible in the spirit world.
Okay, other guesses? Who else wants to? I feel like I want to keep asking, keep guessing.
Yeah.
Who else want to go into what are your questions about magnetism? Let's keep poking at it because I'm really curious. Michaela?
This is relevant to what you're saying, but the thing that I have a question about is that, like, and I briefly listened to the book group thing as well, which kind of was a bit too much for me, but the idea that God alone, and Mary was also saying that Siamedes alone could fix these problems, right? But that there's a whole greater purpose fulfilled when everyone's working together to create this magnetic energy, which is then going to contribute to the process of healing people. And that just blows my mind, like that God's, because I've been really like struggling with this idea of wanting God to wave a magic wand, and I've been asking a lot to understand about that. And this to me was a bit of an answer, like that God wants us to learn how to work together and to create these amazing things together, and that's like also God's law of economy. Like he could just come in and fix, but instead he's inspiring these thousands of people to learn more about what they can offer, how they can heal, how they can work together. I think that's amazing that he wants us to do that together rather than he just does it himself.
Yeah, and Aphraar could feel that immediately when he went in there, the rapport with people, in spite of their backgrounds, he could feel it immediately that they were all on the same page. They were all right there in that moment, in that place of love. Yeah, he was so impressed by it. Even though because he'd seen a lot of that already. Yeah.
Part of our injury as human is the divisions that we need to keep healing, so as we keep coming together and all contributing to the same cause. Because just for a moment there on the planet, just because we all had the same enemy called COVID, everyone were on the same page.
Yeah.
So it does help us all come together when we all have one thing we want to work on together.
Yeah.
But cool book on it. I like that, Marius. I'm not mad at it. Poor thing. So should we go to Judith?
Yeah, Judith. Yeah.
You asked about magnetism, and my question would be like, how do we make ourselves be aware of the pulls that we have? You know, the things that might pull us in
Yes.
certain directions to do things.
Yeah.
How can we
Now,
be aware?
Yeah.
Judith, what kind of feelings for all of us, what kind of feelings would come up if we were hanging out at a house of rest and suddenly a whole group of people start walking away and we're like, why wasn't I invited? I didn't feel anything. What would get triggered for you? Go into
That's a
that.
good question.
Oh,
Yeah.
me? Well, I would feel like, I mean, like I always feel like I don't belong here. There's something wrong with me.
But there you go.
You know.
Yeah.
But while you're at it, while you're feeling those feelings, in case we walk around in circles, you also want to ask, God, please help me release the cause of this feeling.
Yeah.
Otherwise, sometimes we just loop around the same tantrum and we're not releasing the cause. And then also to ask, God, how do you feel about this issue? Because you also want to slowly come into harmony with how God feels about it. This is my way, because I'm very loopy. I can go round and round in circles. So I always make sure I already have a direction with a question. So that the goal is to release the cause and to be in harmony with God on the issue. Otherwise, I'm like one of the most ADHD person I know. So 20 years later, I'm still on it, on the same question. Yeah, but that's I can feel it as this feeling of like, well, would I have been good enough to be called? That's where, that's the feeling. So that'd be a good one to feel about.
I find for me, when I get that feeling, you take it to good enough, change that to developed. Am I developed
Yes.
enough to be there? What would I need to do to be developed enough to be able to participate in such wonderful events?
But I find that if you can let good stories like this, like these are positive stories, inspiring stories, if they're the one triggering some grief, it's a good use of the, instead of needing a more unwelcomed, surprising law of attraction. We can use this kind of situation. I was very triggered with this chapter. It took me 5 hours to read one chapter. I just keep going away and feeling and feeling and feeling. So it's a good opportunity to let those sadness come up, but then don't walk around in circles with it. Because you may be in a tantrum and not really getting rid of the cause.
Yeah.
Thank you, Selina.
Lisa.
Yeah, so for me, I was feeling like the magnetism is more about love, and my Haneen soul being so much more in a loving condition than everybody present. His loving, pure desire created this energy field of, I don't know how it went out, but it touched each soul. It was like the soul to soul communication is through the emotion and the desire. And so it resonated off something in each person who had maybe a mini desire to heal that was sincere, and that they'd be in a condition where they were pure and they could join in complete unison with my Haneen conducting this. And I feel like each person who went there grew in love. You know, the whole purpose of everybody coming together was every single person there received from and benefited those very ill harmed people that were very ill done by on earth. So for me, the magnetism's about love and the pull of a strong desire, like a desire that resonates off something in each person. And because I know I've experienced this when I was at an ashram, when I first was out of college, Mount Madonna Center. For some reason, I would be drawn to go down this path. And sure enough, there was Baba Haridas, who was our teacher, beautiful human being. But I wasn't expecting to bump into him, but something about me wanted to go that way. You know, I was drawn to this beautiful soul's energy. And I kept doing that, where the whole group would be following him around, and then I would be like doing my own thing off on the side, but I'd still be pulled back into wanting to be around him through my soul's yearning that was awakened by this more loving soul in a much higher soul condition. So I think for me, the magnetism.
You could be right. I also want to keep staying on my question of what Selina said, that there's some kind of an element at work here.
Yeah.
Like, because I'm also in healthcare, and I'm going, is there an element? What element?
And it's like, to me, it's like a tangible thing, because it's infused in things. Like, it's infused in the seating, a magnetic. So those are the clues that kind of got me. It's just,
Which can be
it's
love.
a
Love can be
tangible,
relevant.
workable substance. I think of it as a substance. I think
Yeah.
that's right. It's a substance that's generated. Can we generate substance with our love, with our prayers? Can we generate
Right.
a substance that can actually be taken by a higher being and molded into something else that can do a great thing? Like you get 1,000 people's prayers, substance, gather it in your hand and make a little love bomb.
Right. Right.
And
I agree.
You can
And
throw it at Putin or something.
what I was trying to say is that that's the soul, which is the most powerful element, translated then somehow, which I don't understand and I don't have as much
exactly,
passion
it's
about,
okay.
into the
Yeah.
scientific part of how
Yeah,
it translates
exactly.
through the spirit body, which Alicia knows a lot more about and described in more depth, and then translates down into the physical for those of us that are still on Earth. But yeah.
But stay with the question, because as you keep
Yeah.
staying with the question, you create the vacuum to receive. You got to build up your soul's desire to want to know. The other point I want to bring up was that Siamese and myonin. I want to say that there's also something about your soul's gift to provide a certain service, so that if they have the gift in them to remove the specific kind of restriction, then and their development, then make them the right person. But then you could have other kind of injuries that some other soul has the gift to resolve. So I'm kind of like, again, that's my question. Once you develop, can everybody do everything? Or is there something specific that some people can do that you're called for certain things? So we could have people in that amphitheater that are also very developed in their gift, and but not for this particular one. So therefore,
Like they all
Siamese and myonin.
what exactly they were doing there and what they were doing.
Yeah.
So they've all studied it. Like nothing.
That's a
like
question,
there's
isn't it?
love and there's desire and then there's learning. So it's not
It has
just
to be learning.
oh, I have love, I have desire, so I automatically know. And but there is learning. Like I see Siamese and myonin of people who have learned how to do this, harness this substance, mold it into something that can do this amazing result.
Exactly.
That's how I see it. So I also see it as an education.
Exactly.
Yeah, and using your will and your desire and your passion and your. So the people there are specifically there. They're specifically there. They want to be there, and this is what they've learned. This is what they want to do. I mean, when you think you have eternity, you're going to go, okay, this 100 years, I'm going to learn all about magnetic energy, and maybe I can become an adept like Siamese at it.
We know where Selina's going, right? So
yeah, this is my passion. This is what I want to do. So, you got a lot of time, right? So there's going to be lots of different things you're going to end up having passions for, and then you're going to move on to the next thing, right? I think I think keeping that in mind all the time, the education that's involved, and the desire and the learning, and because I've read other channelings, and that's really prevalent, more so in there, that type of thing, that people are educated in creating this kind of energy, creating this type of happening, healing, whatever's going on. They know how to do it because they learned how to do it through their desire and passion and love. Okay.
And then if of us, we'll feel the call and we'll show up. And we'll sing. Anytime they're singing, I'll be there. They're singing, sure. I'll come help with the gift of singing.
The gift of singing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Alicia?
Okay. Oh, mute.
Oh, you're mute, honey. You're mute. Yeah.
I said, I'm having a blank anyway about what I was going to say. Oh, about the substance. So in this physical world, we have an electromagnetic field. It's visible when we're open to that. So why would that not be from a higher perspective in the spiritual world too, just as flowers are in the spiritual world? Mm-hmm. So for me that's transferred over, and it is a substance. I mean, I've occasionally seen even what it looks like here, but I can't see how it wouldn't be a substance. And if everything in the spirit world is organic,
Right.
So the seats are organic too. So if everything on the earth is living and has an electromagnetic field, therefore everything in the spirit world must have that field,
More.
must be or be connected even more so.
Yeah.
There were some other things I wanted to say, but that's all I can remember for now.
Okay. Thank you.
Michael.
As Selina was talking about education and development, I was remembering how Aphraar's conversation on the grassy field, and he was wondering how they could tell how people knew to come to the specific people that were coming over. And he said that they had the development to tell from the colors of the robes what was needed. So maybe was that something similar, but in a person to person instance? In the amphitheater, you have a crowd, but on the hillsides, you have individuals with their ministry that have a feeling, that they have the development and the feeling and the knowledge somehow to respond. So maybe they're, and I think he said that they knew exactly what these people needed. So perhaps like our guides are called to us due to our specific needs and their experiences, maybe there's some kind of magnetism with the injuries that we've had that have been healed through God's love and grace and mercy that makes it especially appropriate to flow to someone with that condition.
I like that.
Yeah, that they have a specific desire to even help that because of their personal experience. Just just like our guides have a personal experience of what our injuries are, also those people there too. That I'm understanding correctly. But also I think something you said there also made me think about even the clothing you wear would reflect what you know, not just how much you love or how developed you are, but also what you know. Like it's just so amazing to me, all of that stuff. That you could look at someone and go, oh yeah, I can tell you're a teacher. Oh, I can tell you're a performer just by the way your clothing looks on you. Like you can tell what somebody.
Sheen on your colors.
Yeah.
The gradient,
sparkle. The underlying tones, everything. They all have significance. There is a channeling, a different type of channeling that talks about young people being unclothed for a moment, and they're very embarrassed not because they're naked, but because their clothing reflects who they are very specifically. So I would think that all of people like that's why so often the clothing is talked about in these channelings is because they and it's so hard to describe it to us, but you can read everything about a person just even by their attire.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just in response to your question before, Miller, where you were saying, would we be called, something like that, would we be called to attend? I think it's, I was just reflecting on how it's every single person in that group bring something of their personality to contribute to the healing. And so you have to see the value of what you can contribute and be willing to contribute it to be able to be a part of that experience. And I was just reflecting on, how that's a hard thing on this planet, to value what you have and to not want to be the same as each other. The conflict if you're going to be different to someone else. So it's a big block to being able to contribute to this kind of healing.
True. Okay. Or to not be included in the healing, because I'm still sensitizing myself to the emotion of rejection. So I have to keep letting this kind of emotion awaken the rejection that I'll eventually get to. So I have to let little things like this hit me, like, what if I wasn't invited? What if I wasn't included? What would that do to me? Just so I can eventually go, oh, that's rejection. Okay, now I can process it. So got to take those little opportunities. More.
I keep thinking maybe that the invitation is really based on them, on their desires and personalities.
Absolutely.
You wouldn't feel that rejection if you were. It's not even like an invitation. It's, this is what you do.
Yeah. And I see that. Yes.
Yeah, you get that's the attraction. It's what you do. Yeah. So when they have a big concert, you're maybe the one that's attracted to that. That's what you're doing at that moment, at that time. That's what you're learning, and that's how you're expressing your joy and that's so. because he was there, because he wasn't even really, Aphraar was invited to watch, but I didn't get the feeling that he was actually doing what they were doing. I didn't get that feeling. I mean, they obviously knew what was going on. I mean, if a big globe opened up and sparkles landed on my head, I'd be like, oh, there's sparkle on my head. They all knew what was going to happen. It's God, like, like it was a little from God, like this sparkly thing, whatever that. Anyway,
well, I was thinking how our superhero movies, we have this obsession with gems that have special powers, and I'm thinking this is why, like, this is the error-based idea that's based on some kind of truth, that there is a place where gems are brought in to imbue certain quality. So it's kind of cool. Michael?
I've been in groups where, healing circles where we're holding hands and we try to send energy to the person beside us and to feel energy moving around the circle. And maybe, and then that's kind of in a real gross, I mean, not a focused or clear way, but, playing with it, but trying to be helpful, trying to pass a healing to somebody, or putting somebody in the center of a circle and praying and trying to give them energy. So maybe I don't know how the connection exactly, or if it's similar, but maybe somebody in the middle that could see the different colors and the field could somehow pull these strains out from us and use the raw energy and kind of refine it in some way.
Yeah, I like that. I like that idea. That would be a guide present to facilitate what we're doing in person around the prayer circle. I mean, obviously, guides would be quite drawn to that. Not only drawn, probably facilitating it.
Like if there were a healing guide, like if we were just the battery for healing energy, like ectoplasm, and there would be a spirit there using that energy to pull from it to take what's needed to the individual. Maybe that's
that's awesome.
And I actually have seen people do a lot of hands-on healing and stuff, and they really do things do happen, but it's always temporary, and that's what Jesus says as well, is these things, they happen. It's only if the person has enough humility. He talks a bit in that video, in the chapter stuff about his healing, how he healed, and where they need to be, and
Right.
These people in this at the chorale, now that's only opened them to being able to feel their causal emotions. It's not taking them away. It's just giving them the opportunity, like, because they're like the dead almost. They don't even really know that they're like they have no self-awareness. That's how badly they've been constrained by others.
Exactly. Let's get Alicia now. Do you want to go ahead? And then we can, I have a question I want to bring up to this conversation.
Well, actually, I was going to say more or less what Selina just said about, of course, it's only working in the spiritual body. It's not working in the soul. It's just opening a doorway, and it's going to be temporary. But it's like I can remember somebody saying, wow, it's like shackles have been taken off of my wrists. So yeah, that's come off. But unless you do something with your wrists or whatever it is, then they're just going to go back on again. Yeah, it's always temporary.
Well, we can do two things. Hold on, Lisa. So I really like the point Selina has brought up for the next discussion. So I will save off my question for a bit. But I was also wondering, at some point in our conversation, let's ask Aphraar, what is magnetism? If he can give us a feeling. So we actually feel what it feels like. And it'll feel different for each of us, depending on how we're open. But I think that we're stuck and we're trying to guess, because we feel like we should know the answer. And I'm saying we don't know the answer. Stay with the question. It's okay. So at some point we can ask Aphraar the question whenever you want. But I also like the second point Selina's bringing up next. So Lisa and then Michael, and then we can move on.
Just to follow along to what Alicia was just saying, the shackles and the bonds are removed. And what I heard in the videos with Mary's book group was that Jesus and Mary, if they get to a point of at-one-ment, they'll be able to perform this kind of thing on all of us to take out those things that weren't our doing. And what it does is it makes it that much easier, significantly easier to get to the causal emotions.
Of course.
Because when the effect is removed and all those bondages are removed, it's much more easy for the people to go there. So I just wanted to make that point. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Mike.
And then a comment also building on what you've been saying. Maybe that's brings the distinction between spiritual healing and soul healing, that the energy can release, can open awareness, but then the soul healing, the next step is to release that, and that's releasing the soul causal emotions is not where like natural love healing goes.
Yeah.
And that's could be the dividing point.
It gives the opportunity though. It's a huge opportunity to just release spirit attachments for a bit, to release some restrictions for a bit, just to give you the breathing room. And most of us generally choose to heal. Most of us. I'm experiencing it right now. I had mediumship yesterday. Some spirits were removed. And today, some prayer had begun for me. I'm on a whole other planet. I can just feel an opportunity was given, and I can feel my soul went straight to the highest possible choice I could make. It was just waiting for that breathing room. And I'm kind of surprised at how strongly my soul chose this is the path, just by having a breathing room, and because something was removed. So, and it was something I've been trying to do for years, and it always felt like I was dragging 100 chains, and I was. So I think you can't go wrong in giving people the opportunity by giving them a bit of relief and see what they can open themselves up to. Selina, do you want to go to your next point of conversation?
The proceedings are commenced with on every head like a jewel sent to flash God's blessing, creating the next step, the bright insignia of the presence of their Father who waited to hear and answer prayer. So they're actually praying. This is based in prayer, which I liked, and I like that because we can also pray. Can we also create this power with our prayers? Can we create the same thing? If enough of us gather together with the right intention, can we do this? Can our spirit friends gather? And this is where the substance comes in for me, like the generation, to me, the generating the substance of love that can be gathered up by our spirit friends to use in the intention that we prayed for. Do you believe in the power of prayer, being able to do this? So that's the question. Do you believe in the power of prayer? Do you have faith in the power of prayer to create huge shifts in the world? Virginia?
I do believe in the power of prayer, for sure. Absolutely. When it comes to huge shifts, though, I still have a belief that, like, my prayers alone, I'm not strong enough. And the faith part is really important. So if I really had that faith and a sincere prayer, that I can create great change.
Yeah, and like in the chorale, it's thousands and thousands of people in really good condition that are able to do this. And I think, well, what would it take here? Can a bunch of us in pretty lousy condition, if there was enough of us, maybe it would just take a couple million. I don't know.
So Virginia, what is your corrupt faith about creating big change for now? What is your belief right now about that?
I feel I have faith and I believe in prayer, but I don't feel like, maybe I don't feel like I'm developed enough yet to really create great change.
Okay, so you feel it's you that you're not able to create big change?
Feels like I don't feel like I'm developed enough yet, that my soul's not developed yet. I don't have enough love in me yet to utilize faith and prayer in a way that can create great change.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that is pretty cool. That is corrupt faith, isn't it?
Yeah, kind of.
And that's okay. Just let yourself grieve that, right? Yeah. Thank you.
Judith?
Well, there's that line that always stuck with me from, I don't know if it's the Life Elysian or the Gate, I think it's the Life Elysian, but it says that if you say a prayer with a purity in your soul, like you have a pure desire, and and it's a prayer that God can answer, God cannot not answer it.
Yeah.
So, which means that you don't have to be in this really good condition. We just have to have a pure desire. And the prayer has to be something that God can answer.
Now, so you may not have any injuries about it, because my injuries that I had to spend decades feeling was, God, I did pray, but you didn't answer. Took me decades to process that grief. But now I know, I'm like, oh yeah, God answered prayers, of course. But there was a journey to get to that level of faith. I had to process what I thought happened as a child.
That your prayers weren't answered, but now you feel that they were answered within laws, within God's laws. That's the kicker there. Yeah.
It took a long time to feel, God, I prayed, you didn't answer. And at some point I came to a place of, you know what, someday I will come to peace about this. I can't receive the answer to this right now, but someday I will get the answer and I'm going to be okay with it. That was my intermediate phase. At some point you decide to give up, to like there's enough anger release to go, you know what, I'm willing to believe that there isn't a good answer here. I'm open to that. So then there's room for more healing, and then you're able to receive. Because remember, you can't have error or truth together in the soul. One has to come out for truth to enter. So you got to make room for the error to be released. Yeah, it's so just science.
You just develop faith, more faith in the absence of
well, you have to release what you do believe.
Yeah.
You have
but
to
initially you develop faith that eventually it would be better.
That was the second step.
That you would know. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The intermediary before the faith could enter. Yeah.
Yeah.
The correct faith. Yeah.
Well, when you look at that, Mary brought this up in her book group. I think it's in the second tape, but it's like the qualities that what's his face had, the man that did the healing.
There was Siamese and Mayanese.
Not Menhaini, the other one.
Siamese?
Egyptian, or no, Menhaini.
The Syrian.
The Syrian, yeah.
Syrian, yeah, they both did. They kind of both, yeah.
Yeah, but the way he said his prayer was like he was confident, he was assured, he had faith it would happen, there was no doubt.
Yeah.
Someone said that it's like, we're so afraid to be great people. We're so fearful because we feel we're arrogant. Yet this man was very great, but there was no arrogance in him. Mm-hmm. So it's like having those qualities.
Okay. Well, once you have a desire to develop those qualities, law of attraction is going to come and trigger what's sitting in its place so it can be released. So when the surprises start happening, you will know what it's about, so that emotions can be removed. Yeah, thank you. Okay, Michaela.
Just on do I believe in the power of prayer? Like, I do, but what I feel maybe is my corrupt faith is, and it's kind of with the magnetism, it's like you can send out some energy towards someone, but unless they turn around so that they're at the attracting end, they're not going to receive the energy that you are putting out and wanting to give to them. And that's where I feel like quite limited on earth, and I can see that there's an angry injury around it, but this sense that, well, no one's going to receive it, no one's interested, all the people want to do is stay in the mess of earth rather than consider these broader concepts. But then I was thinking, guys, just for a bit, thanks. Then I was thinking that this idea, because again, the flowers and the fruits and stuff from that chorale just really stuck with me. And it's like, well, maybe if you send out a prayer, but the other person isn't yet ready to receive what happens, it kind of lingers around them and just sort of keeps poking at them until they can start to open to these ideas, which is nice. I like that idea.
Like, I don't think it's just dissipates into nothing.
Yeah.
The energy, it's an energy. So that's why I'm always going back to it being a substance. So it's just transformed into whatever, and even if the intention, but even having just loving feelings and thoughts creates something, creates energy that is helpful in whatever it touches. And maybe we just don't always know what that is.
I hope that's true. I look forward to really believing in that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Alicia?
Well, I missed a little bit because I lost my connection, but on your last bit, or the last two bits that I heard, I believe that when Jesus was here before, 2,000 years ago, that the healing was according to thy faith, like the faith of the person, and that he had faith that God would do his work. And so I think that's the same for us, whether as Michaela was saying, whether that person is ready to receive or not, that they have any faith. But our faith has to be that we've put it out there. There are lots of friends from God who are holding space for it, rather like sending an email. It always feels like that to me. I'm sending an email, I've sent the email. It's up to you when you open it. So it's a bit like that energetically to me.
But I wonder if it also start to trigger events and opportunities for the fulfillment of the prayer. Like something has been for the fulfillment of the prayer. Like it's not just passive, right? I wonder if it starts to stimulate, something starts to get stimulated because of the prayer.
Yeah, I think so. I think that even like I noticed that even if somebody even asks me about something, it's almost like that thing that they've asked me about has already started to happen. Like if they ask me for a session or something, they've only asked me, haven't set anything up, but it's things start to change just because they have a desire for something to change.
And I always imagine too, when I pray for someone or have loving feelings and I don't feel it's been received, I think that someday, whether it's even if it's not to the spirit world, that someday that will have a positive impact for them. They can look at that and go, somebody really did care about that.
But it can be on earth, as Michaela said, it can be a little daunting sometimes because it seems like it's going nowhere sometimes with people. But that's why it's great to work with people in the spirit world, maybe, because maybe they're more open to that. And maybe I don't know, do you think we're addicted to a feeling of it landing somewhere? Yeah, I think so.
Which is good. It can help you process the disappointments from your childhood. You had good intentions, but nothing came off of it or something.
Yes.
It's a good trigger.
Yeah. Or doing a loving action and actually maybe being ridiculed for it or put down when you had a loving feeling in you. Yeah.
So I feel it's a bit of a lag in the group energy because we're talking about something we can't relate to. This magnetism.
Oh, okay.
So I would like to ask the question now so that we can all have some kind of an emotional connection to what that even feels like.
Yeah.
And then see if that can engage us more. Because we are a little bit frustrated that we don't know what this is. There's some feelings that need to get triggered. And then we're beginning to turn off because of it. So, all right. So the question is, Aphraar, can you give us a point of reference, a feeling, an understanding of what this magnetic essence is that's going on in this chapter? Or however you want to phrase that question. Okay. Yeah. How are we all doing? Who wants to share what it felt like? I'm assuming it's going to feel differently for everybody. I'm definitely signing up to do this in the future. I would like to join kindergarten for this training, please. My God, what a beautiful thing. Judith?
So the question was, what is a magnetic connection, right?
What's it feel like? If Aphraar could give us a feeling of it.
Well, it was a heart desire, a soul connection, a want, and both sides have to have it. And importantly, you have to be listening. And in the land of surprises, you are always listening. So that's what I got.
What did it feel like for you?
Well, it's hard to feel because it's not kind of, it's like they're more evolved than we are. So they're in a higher spirit development, so they don't have the doubts. I guess they're used to where they are, being like everywhere you go, there's going to be something interesting. So you're aware of what's around you. You're always listening, which I thought was interesting, in order to pick up on that, the change or whatever it was that was different that drew you to go to the Magnetic Chorale.
Okay.
And
so your question and your desire was, how do I know that there is a call? That seems to be what was calling you. So that's the answer you got. Good.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. That you are the invitation.
I was going to say something happened to me recently with someone that practices divine truth. And my feeling is they heard a call because they sent they said, oh, AJ and Mary are working with volunteers and stuff. And I was like, well, how did you hear about that? And she just said, well, I asked. So I thought, well, how did she know to ask? After I listened to those tapes, I thought, oh, maybe AJ and Mary are kind of sending out, you know, they have a desire to help train volunteers, and if people are perceptive and desirous enough, they're picking up on it and they're making inquiries. So
look at that. Okay. That's your interest. How do you know? How do you hear this call? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Selina.
Well, this is kind of what you're way too resistant to actually feel this in your body. So I said, okay, well, how about if I sat down on one of those benches, what would that be like? Like the feeling I would get just from sitting there, being there. What would that be like? What would that? And even then I didn't get a feeling, just more of a vision of how it enters the body, and like these kind of the blue-white tendrils of light. It's like a living, it's like a plant almost. It come right up into the body, and it feels lovely.
Good.
And you're kind of part of it, but then if you move yourself, it still kind of remains in you, even like you're part of the bench, but then when you lift yourself up, it stays with you for a while, that feeling.
Wow.
It imparted into you. It's nice. That's nice.
Beautiful.
Very nice.
Beautiful. Thank you. Michael.
For me, it was, I asked for the feeling of the magnetic chorale.
Yeah.
And you know, this is one of those instances where I ask and then I go, oh, I didn't get anything. So then I go, well, maybe I got something, because I did ask, you know. So it was just a peaceful, kind of refreshing, reflective space where I thought of things I've wanted to do for divine truth, and things I've told and come up short with, and challenges. And so it was just a kind of a meditative space where I feel a little refreshed coming out of.
Yeah. Beautiful. So you got a feeling for what that can feel like in our current condition, right? Because we just want a point of reference. Thank you. That's beautiful. Michaela?
I don't think I got a feeling, but it was just as you were asking that question that the kids started to be really noisy. And so I was feeling angry. And then I was connecting to that I'm feeling angry about the question about the power of prayer. And then I was like, sort of, my question was, well, so how can we get this magnetism to impact us on earth the same way it's able to impact people in the spirit world? And then it was like, well, the law of attraction is a big part of it. So like my kids interrupting me, like the most important thing in that moment was to feel my anger that was being triggered, so that I could clear the space to feel the magnetism. So I just felt like law of attraction and engaging with that is a part of being open to the magnetism.
Who else wants to go? What do you feel like? What you got? Virginia?
It's strange because I laid my head down here on the table and I fell asleep. You woke me up when you said, "What's everybody?" And I do not nap during the day.
Yeah.
That's not, it's not something that I do.
Okay.
At all. And I just went off, but that was strange.
Okay. So you had to go to your sleep state and have the experience.
Yeah, a very peaceful feeling, and the next thing I know, you were saying something, and I went off to sleep. Oh well, it's not what I was expecting. I don't know.
Well, you do have an. I'm guessing you're connected to your sleep state. You're quite connected to what you can do in your sleep state. I assume that you're in your sleep state. You had a feeling.
Well, I got the feeling that that is part of healing as well. Like,
yeah,
your sleep. There are many different things that can be healing here on Earth.
Yeah. Thank you.
I guess that's just what I needed right now. I don't.
Thank you. Alicia?
I was going to say that, or not necessarily in the case of Virginia saying that, but over many times, people, when they're a little blocked to things, they fall asleep. It's like they're getting out the way. They're getting out the way for it to actually work. Well, anyway, the magnetism for me it's felt overwhelming since the beginning of our talk, honestly. And it felt even more overwhelming and just had me up dancing and singing. It was just like, and all this movement going through me. I was seeing it, and I don't remember who said that, the blue and white, but I've always seen it as electric blue and golden white. Yeah. And not just me, I know other people who've seen it like that too, so that makes sense. And the fear and lots of colors and a feeling of the absolute devotion to God. I had a real lot of love towards God during this. Okay. And the fear for me that came up is being misunderstood, unheard, people not interested. That's what came up for me, for sure.
Thank you. Okay, I got a feeling of immense gentleness. I had a feeling of, I was given the imagination that I am there, this person is in front of me, and there are all these bands and constriction, and it was this gentle feeling of like, that's not God's truth about you. What's that doing there? Let's just take it away. And then, well, that's not God's truth about you. Let's just take that away. And it would just gently, would just evaporate. And this feeling of immense gentleness, softness, but also clarity of like, there was this joy. I could feel the immense joy and the faith everyone were contributing. But the feeling of was coming from a place of, these are lies, these are not God's truth about you. Let's take these away. We're just going to take all of these away from you now. This is good. This is dead. Let's just clear this. So that was my capacity to experience that feeling was limited, but the feeling came. I'm very grateful for it. That's is very, very soft. at the same time as very exciting. So thank you. Alicia?
Yeah, thank you. You triggered a remembrance for me. I've always felt this energy. I mean, I'm feeling it more now with focusing on this chapter as like a martial art for the heart. It's like, so it's instead of chuk chuk, it's like
Yeah.
gentle movements
Tai
instead.
Chi.
Or I don't know if any of you've seen the movie called The Last Airbender. But that that movie, I've watched it lots of times, always has me completely overwhelmed in tears, because I feel like that's for me like the magnetism that we can work with.
Okay, thank you. Virginia?
And the feelings that have stayed with me after this little tiny nap is this necessity to be in a place where you're completely open and surrender into this and into anything that is what's drawing you. You have to be open to it and just let all your guard down, completely surrender, and be a part of it.
Okay.
Have it work. And that's not always a place to be for us to be.
Well, it's good that it triggers the blocks. It's good. And also, I think that, I mean, we have a lot of passion in this chapter. You could keep asking, oh, if we've asked a question, there could be a different time when you're for a second open and you're just not thinking about something and the feeling enters you. And you're like, oh, that's what that is. So stay open because you've asked and the answer will come. And I am very grateful. I feel very changed by receiving this feeling. It's a huge gift. And it's changing my perspective quite a bit on what healing is. So if you guys can stay open, could give you a lot of gifts to feel what this magnetic feeling is. So thanks to Selina, she's had a strong passion about what is this word? And this is what happens when you have a strong, you keep poking at it. And then you ask the question and the answer can come. So let's move on to the last part. Was it, Selina? There's the question about how do you feel about your own faith in God's goodness, but I really like the restriction conversation. How do you feel? Because we only have time for one discussion. Oh, you're mute, Selina.
The restrictions buying these friends. Yeah, this is the other thing I was passionate about is do my friends that I want to receive this in the spirit world, do they qualify based on that? But it really helped me listen to that video when you say specific to that. So maybe just because I've had contact with people that have suffered so much abuse that they're just bent in their minds in ways that makes it so hard for them. And even if I would talk to them about divine truth and she would just love it, she still couldn't go there. She just couldn't imagine trying to expose herself to that much pain. You know,
I feel there are a lot of spirits around us who are interested in us talking about these restrictions, these bans. Like, what is this? How does it come about? So what thoughts came to you when you read this chapter about restriction? You know, that'd be good to talk more about it. Judith?
I just wanted to respond to Selina's remark, and maybe for her friend, there's a different magnetic chorale. Like, not necessarily this one, but something different to help her. Because,
And also, I think for me, do my prayers help? Like my prayers for that, like my sincere desire. Does that, or does it just happen automatically, no matter what anybody does? But does our love and prayers for people to get that? Does it make a difference? Does it?
Well, I'm wondering, because she's open to you, and you're praying for her, does that then help her be open to the assistance because it came to you? Maybe that's one way we have an influence.
Yeah.
Because remember you were saying that you felt from your guides that she's being prepared for it.
Yeah, that actually, it's not, what the impression I got, though, that it's not completely one-sided, that the person being healed also needs to have some desire to even just be in their body, their spirit body.
Yeah, there you go.
Just something
Yeah.
something to work with, almost like for them,
Yeah.
like something. That was the impression that I got. So that's where our prayers can help with that desire to be alive, just to be not in a comatose state, to have some connection with themselves, however minor.
And also in this chapter, they speak about for this specific type of binds, that these were people that did have a desire to act in truth, to live in truth, but were pushed back, and that was the binding. So their souls are in a way not passive. They didn't just quietly go along. They were trying to push back.
They were trying to push back. But Aphraar does say earlier on, which I can identify with a little better, parents creating these injuries. He does mention that as well.
Yeah.
Briefly. Yeah.
Like disability, you think, like
Yeah.
autism and
For those, yeah, like for those things. Anybody else have any feelings on that or desires for that? Kayla?
Well, I just wonder at what point God comes in and takes away the injuries that aren't ours, and what like, is it just through that moment of death that can happen?
Good question.
Because I was also thinking about Jesus, like he went through the whole process on earth. So did he, like he must have been receiving that spiritual unbinding as he was going along.
That's right.
So what makes someone open, like you're saying, to receiving that spiritual unbinding?
Well, according to that PDF I sent today, Jesus did channeling where he talks about people needing to be lifted to the second sphere level so that the healers can work, the spirit guides can work through the healer, but that the person need to have faith. That he could heal sinners because I have faith, and not people who were more developed but who didn't have faith. So it was a faith that was necessary. So just to answer your question, for people who are still on the physical plane, that we can help in helping people around us develop faith so that then that can happen. That must be one way in which we can serve each other. I wonder. That's a good question. I would stay with the question. Alicia?
I had another blank, sorry. Yeah, I don't remember what it was.
Okay. Very excited by your passion, Alicia. Oh, go ahead.
Oh yeah, no, maybe it was about the attachments. Well, personally, I've felt those attachments from my parents that have, at least, I don't know if they've all gone. And so, I'm talking about scoliosis, which I know that's an interest of Selina's too, that I felt, and it's almost like I could see them unattaching, and I could feel people around me like unknotting everything on each vertebrae. So I feel like it can happen here, but it's going to, again, depend on our desire. But even if somebody like you're open to helping people, Michaela, so somebody has a desire, they call you, well, already, even if it's only a tiny bit, they have some desire, else they wouldn't call you in the first place. So already they're maybe going up a little bit. And I don't know, it always feels like it's just being a vehicle anyway. It's never me, really.
Right. Other comments, like how did you guys feel when you read about how contorted they were, how much they got twisted?
And
go ahead.
In the video, Jesus says that even though that's how their spirit body looks, that's not necessarily how your body looks on earth. Because he was saying to Graham that, they look much like you have those kinds of injuries in your body because of what your mother did to you, even though you present normally.
Yeah.
Your spirit body has those constrictions. And then he started talking about the one he has in his left shoulder. Yes.
Right.
in there, like that he knows it's there and he knows exactly what it looks like and everything. He even has impressions on the outside where you can tell where it is. So
Right.
yeah.
But the restriction on the spirit body is real.
Yeah.
It's not a metaphor. It's an actual restriction on the spirit body. That's what I believe. Michaela.
I've just been thinking about repentance and forgiveness, because I feel like that's related here. Like, I guess once you've repented for what you did, that's when you open up the opportunity for God to come in and take away what was done to you through the process of forgiveness.
If you have acted on the injury, there's this discussion of people who didn't act on the injury versus people who acted on the injury. So if I have all this injury, but I went into anger and then attacked others, which is something I'm working through right now, I wonder if then does it not apply? Or do you have to repent and then it'll be removed? Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I don't know.
I feel like it would apply. Like, I feel like my feeling when I read this chapter is that we can all receive this, and we all will receive this once we're at the point of no longer acting out of the injury, but being prepared to forgive and be humble to what happened that wasn't our fault.
Yeah. Makes sense, right? Like, logically thinking, you're like, kind of makes sense that that's how God will do it. So could be true. Yeah, thank you. Alicia?
Yeah, I was feeling the same thing when Michaela was saying that when she said it earlier, that God doesn't just remove things from us, even though they're not our fault. But as soon as we start having a desire to even address that problem, not that we've necessarily removed it completely, because we're asking God to remove it in some way, not necessarily in words, but in some way we're asking God to remove that from us. But God's not going to interfere with us until we have a desire, until we want to address it, take an action. That's what I feel.
I just want to address what I feel kind of creates some anxiety and frustration in the group, which is we seem to have this demand that we should have answers. I talked about this last week. Stay with the question. It's okay. And whatever answers we may have, whatever truths we may have, we're in first sphere. It's going to keep getting upgraded. So stay open to, it's okay to not know. So I feel this frustration starts to build up, and then we shut down that emotion too, and then there's a disconnect. It's okay to not know. We're in preschool. I'm a preschool teacher. I'm in preschool too. So it's okay. Be okay with, I don't know the answer. Maybe examine, why is this pressure that I should know the answer when God has created a land of surprises where you're supposed to always not know the next thing, because it's fun to not know and God loves surprising you. So don't take God's fun away. I should know everything. No, you still aren't. And if you listen to some of the conversation the spirit guides have with Aphraar, he'll ask this question to this very advanced guide, and he said, well, I know of someone who is way past me, and they don't feel bad about it. They don't feel bad that somebody else knows so much more. They're actually saying, and then that person say, I've only gotten to the shore of the ocean. There's so much more to know. How exciting is that? So we gotta kind of get over this injury. It's okay to not know. Virginia?
I'm a little disappointed to hear that, because I realized that you were talking about how that God doesn't necessarily just take everything away. Like, I always had this belief that if someone was born severely disabled, they were born that way due to, ancestral emotional injuries that had not been released, right? So I really have this belief that when you go into the spirit world, that will all be taken away because it wasn't yours to begin with. Hearing that sad. I feel like
Exactly. But we don't know the truth. We don't know the truth. We're kind of guessing there.
it feels so unjust right now. That's
Good.
what I,
So go for the trigger. Go for the trigger. This unjust stuff I have to feel so many times in so many different ways. And we're guessing, but the beauty of guessing is that we're kind of stirring the pot and we're getting more and more curious. And then the spirits around us are going, yeah, we've been wondering about that too. Awesome. Because the moment you ask now, somebody can come in and answer and teach them and teach us. So it's okay to make guesses. And then because of it, we have now requested assistance to be educated, which is the whole point. So now we're going to have guides and law of attraction coming in to teach us. And that's awesome. So stay with the question and stay with the angst about that's not fair or whatever else it is. I've also heard of people who have disabilities in their awake state, but didn't have it in their sleep state and were able to have enjoyment, were able to have happiness because it wasn't their injury, their sin. So I don't know what the truth is, but it's okay to make guesses. Yeah, good. This has been a profound chapter. Thank you, Selina. It was a beautiful discussion. I like how you brought it all together.
Thanks.
And focusing on that one word, magnetic. And I got the gift of experiencing what that could feel like. Really drawn to it. Thank you. Okay, so next week is Jill. What's the chapter called?
I closed it. The door, something about the door. Door of hope.
Okay.
Something like that.
Oh,
Oh, hope
lovely.
to the door. Something like that. Yeah.
I think I just found it. The door of hope ajar.
The door of hope ajar. That's right.
You can use some of that, hey Jill. You're the perfect person for that chapter. All right, thank you everyone. See you guys next week.
Thanks, Mila. Bye, everyone.